All right, so I got cut off on that last screen recording, but I asked you to do Got It A. So on Got It A, it says a coin is tossed. Find the probability of the coin landing on heads. Write your answer as a fraction, percent, and decimal. So when you are tossing a coin, you have two options or two outcomes. You can either land on heads or you can land on tails. We want to find the probability of landing on heads. Okay, so we're always going to write our favorable over our total outcomes. So our favorable is heads. Well, there's only one way that I can land on heads. So 1 over my total possible outcomes. I only have 2 possible outcomes. So the probability of landing on heads is 1/2 as a fraction. We can then take 1 divided by 2 in our calculator and we get 5/10. Okay, or to write that as a decimal, we'll move it, or to write that as a percentage, we'll move our decimal back 2 places and we'll get 50%. So it will be 5/10 as a decimal or 50% as a percentage. All right, so now we are going to move on to example 2. So in example 2, it says find the probability of rolling a 2, 3, or 4 on a number cube. Again, remember a number cube is just a dice. Okay, so first of all, let's list our total possible outcomes. So when we're rolling a dice, we have the option of landing on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. So those are our total possible outcomes. We want to find the probability of rolling a 2, 3, or 4. So if I roll a 2, 3, or 4. Again, we're going to write our favorable over our total possible outcomes. So you can see we have 3 favorable over 6 total. This fraction can be reduced by dividing both the top and bottom by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So if we were writing our probability of rolling a 2, 3, or 4, we would write it as 1/2, 5/10, or 50%. So those would all 3 be our answers. All right, if we were doing another example, this example is not in your book, so please write this down on a scratch piece of paper. It says a spinner is divided into 8 equal sections numbered 1 through 8. So again, I like to draw it out and to visualize it. So I have a spinner, and it's divided into 8 equal sections. Okay, and it's numbered 1 through 8. Okay, and I need to find the probability of spinning a 2 or 4. Okay, well, I could spin a 2 or a 4. So I have 2 possible or 2 favorable outcomes over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total outcomes. So again, you always put your favorable over your total. Okay, this can be reduced. I can both divide 2 and 8 by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, 8 divided by 2 is 4. So my final answer for probability as a fraction is 1/4. And then I can take 1 and divide it by 4 in my calculator, and I get 25/100. I can then write this as a decimal by moving it 1, 2, and I get 25%. So my answers are going to be 1/4, 25/100, and 25%. In this point, I want you to do Got It B, C, and D in your book. Pause the video. When you get Got It B, C, and D done, go ahead and push play again so that you can check your answers. Okay, so in Got It B, it says we need to find the probability of spinning F. So again, we're always going to write our favorable over our total possible outcomes, okay? So our favorable is F. If you look over here at the spinner, we can spin an F once, okay? So there's only one way that I could spin and land on F. However, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 possible outcomes. So if I was writing it as a fraction, I would say 1/10. I can write that as a decimal by 0.1 or 1/10, and then I would change it into a percentage and write it as 10%. Okay, got it. C. I need to find the probability of spinning a D or a G. If I look at my spinner, I have one option of D and I have one option of G. So my favorable is going to be 2 over 10. Okay, I can reduce this by 2 on top and bottom. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So my reduced fraction should have been 1/5. I can then type in 1 divided by 5 and get a decimal of 0.2. And then I can change that decimal into a percentage, and I should get 20%. So that should have been your 3 answers for Got It C. All right, and Got It D. They're asking you to find the probability of spinning a vowel. Well, if you remember, vowels are A, E, I, O, and U. Okay, so my options in my spinner, A, E, I don't have an O, and I don't have a U. So I have 3 favorable outcomes over 10 total outcomes. I can't reduce 3/10, so that's my answer as a fraction. To write it as a decimal, I put 0.3, and then I move my decimal twice, and I get 30%. So those are my 3 answers for Got It D. So our last part of lecture is going to be talking about finding the probability of the complement. So we need to know what a complement event is. So in our books, it tells us that a complementary events are 2 events in which either one or the other must happen, but they cannot happen at the same time. So for example, if I have a coin, the complementary events are heads and tails because one must have to happen, but they can't happen at the same time. I can't flip a coin and land on heads and tails at the same time, but it either has to land on heads or it has to land on tails. Okay, the way the book describes it is, for example, coin can either land on heads or not land on heads. Those are the 2 options. The sum of the 2 probabilities is 1 or 100%. Okay, so the probability of me landing on heads is 1/2. The probability of me not landing on heads is 1/2. So if I add those 2 together, I get 1. Or if you talk about it in a percentage, it's a 50% chance that I land on heads, but it's also a 50% chance that I don't land on heads. So when I add them together, I get 100% probability. I either land on heads or I don't land on heads. So those are complementary events. So example 3 in our book asks us to find the probability of not rolling a 6. Okay? So again, if we have a dice, our outcomes are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Those are all the possibilities we have when we roll a dice. I want to know the probability of not 6. So the options that I have for not rolling a 6 are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because those are all outcomes that are not 6. Okay? So my favorable this time, I have 5 options that are not 6, but I still have 6 total outcomes, or 6 possible outcomes. So my probability is 5/6. I again can type into my calculator 5 divided by 6, and I get the decimal 0.833. I'm going to round to the nearest hundredth. So this is the hundredths place. My 3 tells my other 3 to stay the same, so it'd be 0.83. And then as a percent, it would be 83%. Okay? Well, remember, if we look back at example 1 asked us to find the probability of rolling a 6. So when we found the probability of rolling 6, we found it to be 1/6. So referring back to what a complementary event is, if I take the probability of rolling a 6, which is 1/6, plus the probability of not rolling a 6, which we found was 5/6, I should equal 1, which 1/6 plus 5/6 equals 1. Okay? I would like you to try Got It, E. Again, pause the video, try it on your own, and then play it back when you're ready to check. Okay, so in Got It, E, it asks you, a bag contains 5 blue, 8 red, and 7 green marbles. A marble is selected at random. We need to find the probability of the marble is not red. So you can see over here to the side, I drew out my bag of 5 blue, 8 red, and 7 green marbles. And our favorable outcome this time is not red. And we still need to put that over our total. Okay, so all of the ones that are not red. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have 12 marbles that are not red. And I have a total of 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 marbles. So the probability of not red is 12/20, which can be reduced by 2 on top and 2 on bottom. I get 6 out of 10. I can reduce it again by 2. And I get 3 out of 5. So my fraction is 3/5. I can then type in my calculator, 3 divided by 5, and I get 6/10. Okay? And then I can change that into a percentage, and I get 60%. So the probability of me not drawing a red is 60%. Some of you might have calculated this a different way, and you might have done it algebraically. So some of you might have said, okay, well, my not reds are 5 and 7. So I took 5 plus 7, got 12. And then I took, to find the total, I took 5 plus 8 plus 7, and I got 20. Are we going to arrive at the same answer? Yeah. Some of us might want to draw pictures to start out with and then work to that algebra as we get more comfortable with the terminology. All right, so our last example, and I know this is getting long, but it says, Mr. Hernandez surveyed his class and discovered that 30% of the students have blue eyes. We need to identify the complement of this event, so the opposite. The opposite of having blue eyes is the probability of not having blue eyes, so not blue eyes. Okay, if the probability of students having blue eyes is 30%, we could take 100%, because that's the total of the class, minus the percentage that does have blue eyes, and we will get the number of students, or the percentage, that do not have blue eyes. So 100% minus 30% is 70%. So 70% of the class don't have blue eyes. Okay, so now it is time to do your assignment. So on page 714, I want you to do the guided practice number 1 through 5. Yes, I want you to do number 5. It says explain the relationship between the probability of an event and its complement. Give an example. So come up with something on your own.